Welcome back to another video. My name is Derek, and today we're going to be taking a look at a classic. These are the last model of the iPod Nanos. This is the 7th gen. I'm going to be showing you how to replace the batteries along with the Digitizer, although this one does take an interesting turn that might be somewhat controversial. So be sure to watch through to the end so that you don't miss that, and I'd like to hear your feedback on your thoughts. Let's get into the video. Today's a fun one. We've got these three iPod Nano 7th gen, and believe it or not, these still carry quite the value. In good condition, they go for about $150, and each one of these needs a new battery, and obviously this one needs a new Digitizer as well. So to get started, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove this white piece of plastic here. I'll take some isopropyl alcohol, and we'll get it into the cracks there. We do have to be careful with using any liquids in this because we do have a backlight display. We'll find a little gap where we can insert. Our tool. And there's a little antenna here behind this that we don't want to cut. We'll gently pry at it and get it to pop away, just like that. I'm going to get out a Phillips screwdriver and remove the single screw. And we'll gently fold back this plastic piece. And I'm going to carefully pry up the little antenna that's on the plastic. And we'll pop it off, fully freeing this plastic piece. And I do this to expose the two little Phillips screws that are down inside of that opening. We'll carefully remove those two and set them aside. And now I should be able to wedge in a pry tool and carefully lift the display and Digitizer. They're screwed together as one unit, and there is adhesive that's holding it down around the border. And if the glass is separating, or I should say the Digitizer is separating without pulling up the display, I'm going to come from below and kind of push on the part that was screwed down to help kind of release both at the same time. We want them to pop up together. And then I'm going to come in on the side. We'll pry up the display bracket, making sure we keep them together as one unit. As you can tell, they like to separate. If they don't stay together, you risk damaging the flex cables. Down inside, it's kind of difficult to see, but there are a few little connectors that we can pop loose. There's one, and there's two, and then it'll gently split away. And this is where you can see how the battery is soldered down to the motherboard right there. The top slides down and out, and then we can gently flip it over. Alright, so I'm going to get out my little portable soldering station by iFixit. These are super handy to have on the go. Plug it in, lock it in place, we'll turn it on. Right where the battery connector is, there tends to be a little bit of like a hot glue covering up all of the solder joints. So we'll scrape that away, add a little bit of flux to help with the soldering, and then we'll take our soldering iron, we'll go down and we'll melt the solder joints, and I'll quickly desolder the battery from the motherboard. And just like that, they are separate. Now if at this point I was just replacing the battery, all I would do is gently pull on this battery tab here, and out pops the battery, just like that. A little bit of double-sided adhesive there, and we'd swap out the battery. I need to go a little bit further with this one. So on the side here, I'm going to take out these screws and set them aside so I don't lose them. And then I can split away carefully the display from the Digitizer, making sure I'm not messing with the flex cables. And then it'll gently fold up, and off comes the display. There is a thin foam double-sided adhesive that kind of cushions the display from the Digitizer. And now I'm left with the Digitizer home button and glass assembly here that we're going to dismantle a little bit further. Alright, so let's get out a new Digitizer. And looking at this, it actually looks like it's slightly damaged, which I don't see too often. There's like a little tear in the flex cable here, and that means the Digitizer won't work. You can see that this is an OEM pull, which means that whoever disassembled it was maybe a little careless in wherever it was disassembled in. But that's not the end of the world, because this is still a good piece of glass. And this still works as far as the Digitizer is concerned. So we're going to do some salvaging here real quick. Alright, so for this we're going to get out a heat plate. We'll turn it on and let this heat up. While we let this warm up, I'm going to try to split this metal frame from the digitizer. It's entangled with the flex cable and the home button. I have to be very careful and carefully split it away from the top. And once the top is loose, it'll allow for easier movement towards the bottom. There, the top's now loose. Carefully pushing it away from the bottom and pulling it off. I'm going to get out some long-lasting 3M Scotch packing tape. It's fairly heat resistant, which makes it perfect for keeping things intact when working with the heat plate. There's a big tech tip there for you. Most packing tapes will just completely get obliterated under heat, but the long-lasting won't. So I have it set up for glass only, as you've probably seen in a recent video, where 9 holes are accessible. But for this one, we need to double, if not a little bit more than double that. So I'm actually just going to poke some holes in the tape that's covering up the holes. That should do it. I'm going to secure the tape a little bit more, like so. Peel up the old double-sided adhesive so it doesn't get in the way, just like that. Take some 0.035 millimeter wire, and we'll carefully start to cut the digitizer away from the glass. We'll work our way down towards the bottom, and we'll make a second pass. Taking the digitizer off the glass. Now we have a good digitizer here, and we're going to do the same thing with the new digitizer. There's the broken glass. Now some of you might think that this is overkill, and it very well may be, because these digitizers are like $5. But I don't believe in waste. So when I can do this, I will do this. Carefully remove the digitizer, back and forth until it wants to come off. And off comes the digitizer. Alright, I will need to take a few minutes to clean off the glass. The old OCA on here isn't always the friendliest to work with. But with patience, which I have plenty of, I'll be able to clean it up nicely. And after a few minutes, we'll basically have gotten all of it off. And hopefully, I'd like to know in the comments below, are you one to go the extra mile and save something instead of wasting it? Because this digitizer, let's be honest, I don't need to go through this process. I can just get a new one, but I'm wasting a completely good digitizer. And this other digitizer would just go to waste as well. Alright, so after a mountain of adhesive, we've got our clean digitizer and a clean glass to put back together. There's two ways to do this. One would be to use OCA sheets. The other would be to use Loca, which is the same thing, just one's a liquid version of the other. And for this, I'm going to be opting for the liquid version because it's quick. I'm going to take some acetone and we'll wipe down the surface that the digitizer is going to be adhered to. And I take some Loca and I'll squeeze out a little bit like that. I'll take the digitizer and give it a wipe down as well and clean it up nice and good. You can catch in the reflection if there's still smudges and smears on it from the old adhesive. And then we'll take it and we'll gently set it down and let the Loca adhere to it and slowly let the rest of it down so that we don't trap any bubbles inside the Loca. And it looks like I've got one little bubble that I'll need to contend with, but not a big deal. And I'll let the Loca spread to all the corners and let surface tension pull it all around and get rid of all of the spaces that it hasn't reached yet. Now I'll see if I can capture this on camera, but there is a teeny tiny bubble right there. If I squeeze, I can get it to run towards the top of the screen. I'm going to chase it all the way out, just like that. And then I need to center up the digitizer, and you can see that it's almost made it to the bottom here. It's made it to the top, but not to the corners at the top. But it's getting there. You can see it's just got a little bit more on this corner and on this one as well. And then the bottom is pretty much done. A little bit more in this corner. And we'll be good to start curing the Loca. To cure it, I'm going to be using this UV curing lamp. All of the tools that I use are obviously available at mobilecentrics.com. Some of the pros and cons to doing it this way is I'm able to line it up perfectly and adjust the movement of it with the Loca versus the OCA, whereas once it's stuck, Once you've stuck one section down, the rest gets stuck in the same place, so you can't make any movement as far as the alignment goes once it's stuck. The main difference is going to be cleanup. With Aloka, there's most of the time there's a little bit of cleanup work because of overspill. Like you'll see here on the edge, I've got excess pouring out of the edges, which we'll clean up in a second. Whereas using OCA, you won't have any of the cleanup because there's no liquid involved. Alright, we've got 0 bubbles left anywhere. It's perfectly aligned. I'm going to cure it from the bottom side up, or I guess the top side. But in doing this, I can make sure that things are aligned right, and I won't be curing the overspill, which I can clean up much easier if it's not cured. So we'll hit this with the UV light from this direction, and pretty much instantaneously wherever the UV light hits, it'll start to cure, and within a few seconds, it'll be cured fully. And we'll just go around the perimeter, really cure it, make sure it's nice and solid, and then we'll move on to cleaning up the overspill. Alright, so now you can see that little bit of liquid there on the edge. I'll take a clean room wipe and some acetone, and I'm going to just wipe down the side like that, and one more time for good measure. And now this side is nice and clean, and the top side we'll need to do the same thing on it. Take a cloth, wipe it down, and do it again. And clean up any potential overspill around the home button area, which looks really clean. And up at the top, we'll give it a wipe as well. And now we are good to cure any of the edge that didn't get hit because of the coverage of the paint on the other side. Do this for another minute, and this screen is refurbished and ready for me to actually finish this repair. Alright, I need to clean up the old adhesive on the frame so that the new adhesive will really want to stick. I'm using some acetone, works really well at getting rid of old adhesive. Alright, so I'm going to be using some very thin foam adhesive for the display, just like the factory. And we'll cut that to length, and we'll do that on all 4 sides. Peel off the little protectors, and now that has adhesive on all 4 sides. Now we'll take some similar thickness adhesive, Tessa tape, and I'll clean up the edge one more time on the digitizer, and then we'll apply it to the border of the digitizer. And we'll go across the top, cut that to length, and now I'm going to cut to fit a larger piece of Tessa tape so that we can get a nice snug fit. And then we can pop off the protector, just like that. Same with these sides. Double check carefully that we have no dust on the inside of the digitizer. Slip over the metal bracket around the flex cables. Line it up with the digitizer, glass. Make sure the home button is going through properly. So we'll line up the bottom flush. The top overhangs a little bit with the metal. Make sure we get that nice little click with the home button. Verify that the flex cables are sitting nicely. And we'll take our display, make sure it doesn't have any dust on it. Double check the digitizer, and we'll gently set it in place. Alright, now that we've got that on there and everything's looking good, I'll put back the side screws, and then we can grab our battery, get out a new battery, and the original adhesive is still good on the back of this display, so I'm just going to utilize it. So we'll line it on up, press it against the back of the display, go in with some acetone, and we're going to clean up the inside frame for some new adhesive. And the adhesive that's on the top of the charge port and the headphone jack is a liquid adhesive initially. It adheres the glass to the bottom of it, so we're going to be using some cold press adhesive for that. But in order to do that, we're going to have to scrape out and remove the old yellowed adhesive. That's where the OCA remover. Now for the side adhesive, I found it so much easier just to apply it to the side of the frame instead of trying to apply it down inside the housing. So we'll stick it on there like so, trim it at the top, and go down the other side, and then on the top of the little metal exposed piece up here, we'll put our last piece of tape. To solder this on, we're going to apply some new flux down there on the 3 pads, and then we'll apply some flux as well to the end of the battery lead to help the solder flow through the holes nicely. And we'll solder these on real quick. All right, now that those are soldered on, we'll clean up the flux. We'll get out our cold press adhesive, and I'm just going to cover up the solder joints real quick with this, just to help shield them a little bit from the elements. Now we'll go ahead and connect up the digitizer and the display. All right, there's the digitizer, and there's the display connected. And at this point, we can go ahead and test it. Not sure if there's any juice in these batteries, probably not, but we'll go ahead and hit the power button anyway. And nope, turn on. We'll take our lightning cable and we'll plug it in. And there we've got our Apple logo, and there it's on. And let's see if we have touch. And we do, we have touch. That's what we're looking for. Now, it looks like there was at some point some moisture that got in there. Don't think that was me, as I really didn't use any alcohol in that area at all. But not a big deal. Let's check and see if the home button works, and it does. So at this point, we are good to close this up. We got our little charging symbol on the top there. Go ahead and turn this guy off, power down, and we'll push in the top. That's nice and snug. And then before we close in the sides, we need to remove the little protectors for the adhesive. So we'll pop those away. Oops, on both sides, and then gently compress it down inside, and we'll compress it all the way down. And there's going to be some type of bounce back here, and that's where the glue comes into play. What we'll do is we'll push this in there a little bit, and we'll give it a good squeeze, and we'll want to pipe in just enough that we're confident that it's going to hold down these corners. And we'll jump over to the other corner and pipe in some glue, just like that. Compress that in, and if we get any type of squeeze out like we did right there, easy clean up. Just wipe that down. We'll get out a couple clamps, and we'll clamp down the two corners so that the cold press can spread out and cure. These clamps are basically reaching their max clamping power in order to hold this down. This will leave us access to put back those two screws and tight, and then we can put back the little plastic piece here and screw down that last screw. And I'll take the cold press and we'll run a nice little bead under this little antenna here, and then on top of it as well, and around the border, a nice thin little bead so that we can slap over the white piece, and we'll clamp this in place, but this is done. All right, so that is how to replace the battery and the glass only on an iPod Nano 7th Gen. Obviously, the part is cheap. I understand that. But to see a part go to waste just because of a small defect, when I have the ability, and it doesn't take too much time to take two parts that would otherwise be bad and swap the good parts and make a good one out of it. Let me know if you think it was worth it, if you are one to not let things go to waste, if you have the ability to do something about it, or if you would just chuck it and go for a replacement. I can definitely see both sides, but I'd like to hear in the comments below what you think. If you have any questions, leave them down below as well. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.